Hello students, in this video we're going to take the work that we've been doing with our statistics and our modeling, and we're going to create a graph that we can show this data more interestingly, I should say. So far we have found our mean, median, mode and range using some functions and formulas. We also found a frequency table, and I've demonstrated two ways in two separate videos, one that's a little bit more hands-on and one that will allow you to find the frequency using formulas. So go back and have a look at those if you haven't. We do need our frequency table for what we're about to do because we will most often graph from a frequency table. There's really nothing we can graph per se of mean, median, mode. They're single values. So let's have a look at graphing this frequency table. So I'm going to begin by simply selecting the values that I want to graph. If you've got headings for your columns of values, or it can be rows, but most people tend to work in columns. It just seems a bit more natural, I guess. If you've got headings, then that can be helpful to include because they can be part of your graph straight away. But the most important part is I have values, and these are going to be the values here on the left-hand side are going to be my, they're going to be the axis value, and then the frequency is going to create our bar graph. So once I've got it selected, I'm going to go to my insert menu if I haven't already chosen it, and I'm going to be looking for this charts section. Now you can go straight to the type of chart you like, but it's often good to go with the recommended charts and see what it thinks you should use. So it's recommending for this type of data, maybe a bar or column graph, maybe a line graph as well could be an option. And it's also got this other chart down the bottom, which we don't use very often, but it could also be interesting. But we're going to go with just a basic column graph. So I choose that column graph and press OK. As quickly as that, I now have a graph. So you can see the first column has become our X values, the possible options, and the Y value has been created for us based on our frequency values, and with our columns have been added in for the actual frequencies themselves. Okay, this is an object, and when I click on it, you can see it's referring to the table where it's coming from, and I can move that around and position it to make it nice and neat. I can also come into this graph and change things. So if I don't like that heading, I can put a different heading just by changing it. So frequency of year 7 ages on social media. I can't type. So that's a much better heading for my work. If I want to change the color of these, I can come in and I can choose it, and I could decide to change the color of one of these columns. Sorry, so here we go. Color, maybe I want this one for some reason to be a reddish sort of pinky color. I can do that sort of stuff. I can adjust it, I can resize it. Basically, fiddle with this graph to make it look a little bit more the way you would like. But the benefit, like everything so far using Excel, the biggest benefit is that it will change. So if we find our frequency table changing, then our graph will automatically update. Now the frequency table I'm currently using is the version that is using the formulas to work it out. So let's again go and change some of these default values. So if I change that to be a few more tens in here, put a few more of them in, you can see as I do that, my frequency is changing here, but my graph is also changing. You'll also notice that my mean, median, mode, and range are also changing because they're all using formulas that are being recalculated every time I change one of these values. Okay, if I undo those changes, you'll see again my graph and everything adjusting. So that's how easy it is to put a graph in. Let's have a look at one more. I'll take the same set of data again, and I'll put in this time, so insert, I'm going to put in a pie graph. So here is my pie graph, but that is less useful. And again, I wouldn't usually use a pie graph like this to show this data because it's less obvious, okay? I certainly would want to change this value down here, give it a better title, but it's less obvious to me than this nice bar graph. So choosing the graph you use is very, very important. Just because maybe you can make a graph using the set of data you have very easily, doesn't necessarily mean it is the best graph to use. You certainly can use a pie graph. I should clarify that for frequency, but in this case, it doesn't really make it clear the way it is here. I definitely want to readjust this layout, change some colors, definitely change all my labeling to make it clearer what these represent. Okay, so you can try making any different graph that you might like. So insert, let's have a look at what that would have looked like as a bar chart. Okay, so here it is there. So you can see you can make all the graphs that you like really quickly, decide which one you like best, and then of course you could adjust it, make it a little bit nicer looking, etc. So that is the very quick how you can make a graph of a frequency table, or in fact any set of values really that you have that would be appropriate to graph.